Maryland, where you're at, you had told me is right now it's medical only. How did you get involved in the cannabis industry?
So back in 2014, when they first passed the regulations, my mother and I started just looking at it as a business opportunity. As we began to study the industry a little bit more, we became passionate about it from every different aspect. The economic benefit that it can bring communities and owners themselves, as well as the medical benefits that you can bring patients, and all the whole science behind cannabis we became very passionate about, as well as how cannabis and the war on drugs has negatively impacted African American communities, of which we are a part of. So that's kind of how we first got interested, and in 2015, I had graduated from college in 2014. In 2015, when they actually released the applications in Maryland, we put together a group to apply, and lucky enough have been awarded a dispensary license, and we will open this summer.
Oh, cool. So how's it been going from getting the license to actually getting the business together? How's that process been going?
I mean, it's a very difficult process. This is not like opening any other type of business. It's very highly regulated, and it is, there are so many different government-related agencies that you have to go through, and on the state level and the local level, and it's extremely costly. There's not access to banking, so no loans, no traditional loans, I guess I could say, and so it's very high access to capital. And it's just, it's been quite a process for us. We're a very unique group in that we were almost 100% self-funded. So we have no huge backer behind us. It's not like we have millions of dollars in our reserve to fund us through all the mishaps that we've been going through. We originally thought we would be open in January. It's now almost June, and we're still working towards it. So all that being said, we've definitely learned a lot in this journey, and we're so blessed and thankful that we are in the position that we're in to be able to do what we've done. However, we would love to be able to help other people, especially people from our community, from our African American community, to be able to run businesses like this, because most people that are like us do not have access to the resources and capital needed to be able to successfully even open one of these businesses. I'm not even getting towards being able to successfully run it. They can't even get to the point that we're at now because they don't have the capital or resources, connections at all. So we're very, very, very fortunate that we were able to do so.
Okay. And what have you noticed, now that you're in the industry and you're working among the existing players and the everyone, what have you noticed in terms of diversity of dispensary owners and the people funding the dispensaries? Have you noticed anything with regard to diversity?
Mm-hmm. Well, when it comes to the groups that are funding cannabis businesses, the ones that truly have the true ownership in the companies, you're not seeing a lot of diversity there. Pretty much it's the same demographic. It's your typical 50, 60-something white man that owns these companies. If you really look at the true ownership, you'll see a lot of, diversity is a huge topic when it comes to cannabis. So I think that most companies in the industry have taken it upon themselves to make sure that they are somehow including diversity in their model. So that has played in ownership, and then often in certain states it is favored to have diverse ownership. So I think people are definitely playing into that. But if you look at true ownership and the way that they word these deals, a lot of the times there is hardly any diverse ownership at all. So that's what I'm finding in the industry, on as a total. Mm-hmm.
And so what do you think the advantages of having greater diversity in the marijuana industry or the cannabis industry would be? What strengths does it bring?
Well, the first reason that I think that it's completely imperative that every company focuses on diversity is because this is a medicine, and it's a medicine that can help every demographic, every race, and every race needs to feel comfortable accessing it. And without diverse leadership, not every race is going to feel comfortable using this medicine that has such a negative stigma already. So I think that it's almost imperative so that we're able to help as many patients as possible to have a diverse industry.
And among your peers, have you noticed, and you mentioned briefly that some have focused on diversity, but have you noticed any focus on diversity in hiring?
Yes, I've definitely. That's one thing I've seen kind of throughout the entire industry, especially in these newer markets emerging. Most are required to have some type of diversity plan or diversity hiring schedule in place. So I'm seeing that because it's kind of government regulated, but at the same time, I still feel like companies have put this as a priority, and I love that about this industry. I'm so excited to be a part of it. But for sure, I see it more in the hiring stages than in the ownership. Ownership is much less important to people, I feel like. And that's where I'm looking to change. I'm looking to kind of blaze a trail behind me so that there can be more African-American ownership within this industry.
And what would that mean to have more African American ownership? What would that mean to the African American community in general?
I mean, yeah, it would mean so much. There's so many families that have been negatively affected by the war on drugs. So many people who have children or friends, cousins, brothers who were locked up for something as simple as having some crumbs of marijuana in their car, and they couldn't afford bail, and they stayed in jail for 6 months. Now they get out and their record is tainted, can't get jobs, they can't apply for loans. And to have African American ownership, people who can really influence and change the industry, people who can hold community forums and hold expungement forums, and they can teach other people about cannabis and just have safe access to a plant that in the past they were, prosecuted for. It would change our whole outlook on the community, and hopefully it would help African Americans feel and trust our law enforcement system a little bit more. And I think that's part of why our community does not trust the law enforcement agencies.
Okay. So, how has the war on drugs has it touched your life at all prior to, or I guess it could still be doing it now, but touched your life or the life of your friends or family, and if so, how?
Yes, of course. I mean, not me directly, but I don't know if any black person could say they don't know somebody that has been affected by the war on drugs. And I think that sometimes when I say that, people of other races are like, no, really? And I'm like, no, seriously. I don't think that one black person could say they don't have a family or friend that has somehow been affected by the war on drugs. I'm not saying that it's always not warranted. Sometimes it definitely is. But then there are times where it's not. You hear about those crazy stories, like I said, where if you had a few crumbs of cannabis, then you're locked up for 6 months. I personally, like I said, have never dealt with anything like that, but I have seen countless friends over the years and some family been harassed for something as simple as, okay, the car smells like marijuana. I mean, and completely harassed and over-policed because of that. And it's just very interesting to see the difference in how other races are treated when the same thing is happening. I've seen families been, almost torn apart because of this, because they're out here trying to hire lawyers to fight petty drug charges, and they end up spending thousands of dollars over something that, a white kid just got a slap on the wrist for, a warning, or probation, where a black kid is on probation doing community service, and their record is tainted for the rest of their life over a J. So I mean, yes, I have definitely seen that firsthand.
Okay. So then, what are your thoughts on the fact that, the war on drugs has been going on since 1971, that all of these lives have been disrupted by this war on drugs, and now it almost seems to be just going out with a whimper, like it's widespread, popular, and so what are your thoughts on that transition between legal and illegal?
I mean, I would love to see that all nonviolent marijuana crimes are just dropped. That's what I would like to see. Anyone who's currently serving sentences, as they should be released immediately, and all of their records should be expunged. It doesn't make sense that now, if you're stopped in the same exact position that you were stopped in 5 years ago, that you might get a fine, $100 fine, whereas someone else could still be sitting in jail for that same exact crime.
Right.
Though that needs to be reversed, and I would hope that when we do reach federal legalization, that does happen.
Okay. And do you have any thoughts? I'm just going to throw this out there. I know it's kind of a challenging question, but I've recently started reading opinion pieces talking about how the vast majority of marijuana arrests are not nonviolent, that there is some violent aspect to it. And there are proposals that say, even for violent crimes, we shouldn't be locking people up like this because it can, perpetuate the cycle of violence from the criminogenic nature of prison. So are you only focusing on the nonviolent, or have you given any thoughts to how violent offenders, people who have violated drug laws, might be treated?
I have thought about it, and kind of where I am right now is I believe that all nonviolent crimes should just automatically be dropped. No review, no nothing. They should just automatically be dropped. And then violent crimes probably should go through more of a review process because each one has an individual situation. If you shot and killed somebody in the head and stole 3 pounds from them, you probably shouldn't get out of jail because there's a bigger problem there. But at the same time, if you had a gun in the car at the same time as you having a J in the car, and that's why you're arrested and they're calling that a violent crime, I think that person, deserves a different sentence than the person who shot and killed a man. So I think that those need to be reviewed at a higher levels, but I think that all people with nonviolent crimes, it should just automatically be dropped.
Okay. It's an interesting answer about the, just in terms of vetting the violent crime.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all it's definitely subject to that specific crime.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I'm looking at is the idea of marijuana reparations or the equity programs that are intended to provide some kind of mitigating support for communities that have been most damaged by the war on drugs. Do you have any thoughts on marijuana reparations, and are there any policies that you think would be particularly successful?
So I have heard about a few programs in different states. I've definitely heard about Oakland. I love the idea. I love what all of these states are trying to do. However, I worry that sometimes they're going to set these people up for failure. That being said, most of the people that fit the profile of these programs are not people that could actually run a true cannabis business. And, I mean, they're just not capable. They don't have the access to resources and even the opportunities, the capital. They don't have any of those things. What I'm guessing the states are doing is they're hoping that people who do have those things will find these people to partner with, and that will allow them to be able to be a part of the program. I think that sounds really great. I just think it's going to be a lot more difficult to implement than we think. So I definitely think that the states should offer a way to kind of implement these programs a little bit better than just kind of putting them in place and saying, okay, this is here, and we have to do it. Also, in some states, I've heard that they tie these programs to the licensing process so that it, like, let's say if a certain number of these equity applicants are not awarded licenses, then the whole program doesn't happen. And I think that shouldn't happen either. Because, like I said, I think it will be very difficult to meet a lot of the requirements that these states have set forth through these programs.
What do you think?
It's kind of it's a catch-22 for me.
Yeah. What do you think about using cannabis revenue to invest in or provide funding support for those equity applicants?
Yes, I think that is extremely important. I think we should definitely be doing that. Incubator programs and accelerator programs, I think, are very important. I just think everyone should also understand that you have to look at the state's individual law, because each cannabis program is run by their state. And, in some states that might not make sense. Like in a state like Maryland, right now, so there are about to be a few more licenses issued, a few more grow and a few more processing. After those licenses are issued, the whole program will be locked down until 2024. There is no point in setting up an incubator or an accelerator program here in Maryland truly right now, because no companies can enter the market right now. And it would look a little bit like, it wouldn't look good to have these programs in the incubator program for the next 4 years, and then all of a sudden the licenses come out and they get them. It's kind of like, in this program, that means I automatically get a license. That doesn't seem as fair as it should be. But in states like California and Colorado, where it's more of a open licensing program, and you kind of just, if you meet the requirements, you can get a license, I think that those programs make a lot more sense.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Well, do you have any other thoughts on how, as our state, Illinois, or how as Maryland goes through the process of legalizing recreational, do you have any other thoughts on how society can help those communities that have been most harmed by the war on drugs?
Yes. What I tell people right now, even in those communities that have been most negatively affected, the main thing that everyone should focus on is education, and getting people to understand the science behind the drugs. That will take away the negative stigma that comes with it, even within those communities, because even within communities that have been negatively impacted, there's still this a stigma about cannabis. Even within them, they think it's only for recreational use. They don't understand the medical benefits, and sometimes with them, that's why it's hard for them to take it seriously past anything other than the black market. I think that if African American communities could understand the science behind cannabis and how powerful this medicine is, they'll start to think of it as a medicine, and they'll start to think of the industry as a business, as a serious business, as they should already. It's already a multi-billion-dollar industry. But I think if those communities could understand the science behind it a little bit more, they would be able to look at it in the serious light that it should be taken. And that's what I tell people all the time when they ask how they can help or how they can be a part of the movement. I'm like, well, first educate yourself, and then go out and educate the community.